Hey everyone, Namira here, and the few 3-year-old record, almost 3-year-old record, has finally been beaten. This is the smallest 5x5 piston door with no droppers or hoppers, observers. There is no copper bulbs, none of that. It does use target blocks, but it does work in 1.16 higher. I'll shoot it in action real quick. The door does take a long time to open. Anyhow, the top does refire twice, so I'm going to be explaining pretty much everything of how I got this to work. Now, this does use Ashley's, or Vitally Wolf RS's tripwire setup on the bottom. I'll link her channel in the description because it is really clever, and this is pretty much the only way I was able to get this door to work. It's also slimeless, which is a cool little bonus. But it is also extremely locational, and as you just saw, it takes forever to open. So here is a little bit of a more visible version of the door, as you can see. This does use a little bit of funky layout, so this uses the traditional Yuan Yuan layout on the top. Yuan Yuan Megatech, I don't really know where this layout originated from, but I'm pretty sure it's one of the two. It has a double extender with a storage on this side and a single piston extender on this side, and it has a burnout to triple extender. As you can see, if I power this pressure plate, there's a little pulse right there, and I'll show you what that is in a second. Take off item, and as you see, the triple extender retracts. And so I'll explain how this triple extender works. It's not too complicated. Basically, for these 3 high tops, the only way to get it to work is you need to somehow find a burnout triple extender and somehow get it to retract the pistons. And the way I did that is I kind of just took a pressure plate, repeaters, and basically this torch just spams this top line right here and this bottom one right here with a 3-tick repeater, and this dust updating it. It's a little bit weird to explain, but you can kind of see how it works. The pistons, the top pistons right here, get retracted later. You can kind of see what's going on. I don't really know much how to explain it, but I found it off on my own. This is probably, this is most definitely a triple piston extender that has been used before, so I can't say I invented it. But really with these tops, you can't really do much. Everything's really similar. Everything's the way, and all these 3 high tops, they work very similarly. The storage is pretty much the same. We don't talk about this because it's stupid, but it works, so it ain't stupid. So let's start with the input. Now, this layout does use a little bit of a weird layout. This door uses a little bit of a weird layout. So instead of the side piston being in the side, it's actually in the bottom, and I'll explain why I did that. And this part right here, this weird double armor stand setup, this was actually Ashley's idea, and I thank her a lot for this because it does make the door work. And the bottom piston, when I close it, it actually unpowers the burnout. And it's funny because the burnout actually does not power the closing storage on the bottom. It's actually powered by a bud power from this block. That is not really intentional. It doesn't actually have to be like that, but it's interesting to note. The redstone powers, the lever powers the redstone, and it powers the bottom piston right here, which closes this part of the door. This is where the frame would be. This piston gets powered by a slider. This slider gets powered from the bottom, and this cart powers the detector rail. And obviously there's blocks here, there's barriers. It's just so you can see it a little better. My cart powers the detector rail, and it powers the pistons here. And this top piston is powered by this pressure plate right here. And this pressure plate, it powers the top triple X piston extender. It also powers the storage. And this armor stand down here, this is important because this armor stand is from the refire for the top. And it's important because it is isolated from the storage. The storage can only be powered by this lever right here. And this is important because when the top refires, you do not want the storage to power again because the storage also powers the bottom. And now this top is actually pretty unique because I managed to fit. So in 4 high bottoms, you actually need 2 pulses, as you can see. as you can see, there's 2 pulses to power it, and the reason is because on 5 high bottoms, what you usually see is you'll usually see a loop coming from around here that kind of loops it back with a little T flip-flop. This is what you normally see in the bottom like this. It's not exactly like this, but it's the same concept. Basically what it does is it kind of loops back to the beginning. That's how you get the second pulse on 5 high bottoms. Usually they don't always work like this, but usually they do. And on this one, because there's no real space, there technically is space to do that, but because the store is dropper-hopperless, that was basically impossible in the store to fit it all in the bottom. In another 504 bottom that I made, what I did is I figured out that you can link it with another redstone block, little monostable type thing. This is your dual edge here. And then what you could technically do is you can have a repeater going down like this, and then have a dropper. Not a dropper, a comparator, or 2-tick repeater, sticky piston, and a cauldron or a composter. And you can have it. This is one way to do the double pulse in the bottom. And you have your repeater coming from here that powers the bottom. So that's one way to do it. Now the issue is that because the store has no droppers and hoppers, there's barely any space to work with to begin with. So this is unfortunately not an option in the store. So what I did is I managed to somehow, with a weird little burnout circuit here, fit that double pulse in the top. Now, I'll explain that. So I already explained the triple extender. Now what this part does is pretty simple. It powers the comparator. This basically fires the first pulse. It powers these 3 pistons right here, so the storage can push their blocks in. And now, as you can see, the storage fired a pulse right here. The storage pushed their blocks in, and the door closed. You just turn this really fast, so you don't have to wait for the opening animation every single time. So, that's what this does. The computer turns off the comparator from this power right here, and then this dust will unpower the burnout to make sure it doesn't spam in the closing. And now, the reason why there's a target block here is quite obvious, because there's a torch right here, and you cannot have this power, or you don't want this torch to power the top row of repeaters here. Now, okay. So the lever powers both the triple extender. This pressure plate naturally powers this as well. So this pressure plate will power. This will cause this piston to push up, powering the pressure plate. This will fire the first pulse. And then the storage piston right here is powered by, okay, so this is a pulse extender. You've most definitely seen this circuit before if you've done redstone. It works like this. The funny thing is I actually don't even know how this works. But it works for some reason, and if you add more comparators, it stays on for longer, and that's why it takes so long to open. And the reason why I didn't do this retracts faster, but the issue is that this burnout unpowers, which spams the top triple piston extender. It keeps it from extending, so that's why this has to take a long time to make sure it does not retract, the storage doesn't retract too early. So this 4-tick repeater will power this dust right here, and this powers the target block, which then Bud powers the piston, and this piston down here acts as an updater for the triple, but it also acts as an updater for the storage. When the redstone dust powers the storage right here, this part of the storage will power, and the way this works is it's actually a classic TT Lemon style 3x3 piston extender, 3x3 storage thing. So the way it works is that this dust will power, this is a line, so it will power this block right here. And there's a note block under here so that it Bud powers the sticky piston. And then this torch will turn off, and this will unpower the piston, which then, is auto jump turned on? Gosh, swear to God. This will go away, and then basically that prevents this piston from being powering, so it will basically spit out the block. and then this torch turns on, which powers this part of the storage. It's really simple, and you can see it happening here. I slow it down, it's a little easier to see. And then this block, since there's a torch right here that powers this piston again, it powers back down, and it stays extended. Now, this has been used a lot. It is used in Mumbo's old 3x3 door, and it's also used in TT Lemon's 3x3 doors. It's a circuit that's been used a lot. I think it's TT Lemon who invented it, but I'm pretty sure, but I'm not sure who actually invented it. And this part is where it gets a little interesting. Normally on these 3 high tops, this burnout stays powered so that it doesn't spam the pistons as you see in the closing. But the piston spamming in the closing is actually very important in this door. Well, not the piston spamming, but the burnout firing, because what it does is if I make a little separate circuit here with that burnout, as you can see, if I put a repeater here, I don't know why I'm color coding it. I'm not really good at filming videos or talking in them, and I haven't done this in so long. Okay, we'll try to burn out, and then I'll update it. And as you can see, this powers twice. But the issue is that if I have a dual edge right here, god damn it, if I have a dual edge right here, the issue is that it powers 4 times. So the way I've avoided this is it's really hard to explain. It's not super hard to, well, I'll show you. It's a little bit weird how I got this to work, but this is actually I believe this is the first 3 high top to ever have a double pole circuit like this integrated into the top instead of the bottom on a 3 high top. So the dual edge gets bud powered down here from this piston right here, and then there, and this side piston right here gets powered. And so what happens is that this will actually not power at all on the first time it pulses, which is really important. And now the way it works is that this repeater right here actually updates this piston, which also updates this piston on the second firing. And because it's 4 ticks, it doesn't update until later, until the second set of burnout pulses. And that's how I got this part to work. I'm actually very surprised I was able to come up with this. I thought it was kind of cool. It does use some 1.16 stuff though, which is kind of unfortunate, but this is a 504 block 5x5 with no droppers or hoppers. I didn't even think this was remotely possible after me and Pixie Blocks made the 540 dropper-hopperless. I did not think this was possible whatsoever, so I think it's kind of cool that it was possible. Now, the bottom, I think that's pretty much all I really need to explain. In the top, everything basically, the storage goes in reverse order, and then this burnout right here spams the piston and this redstone block with this line to to retract the double extender. You'll see what happens. It's a little hard to explain without having it take forever, but that is how the storage works. Okay, so down the bottom. Okay, so I had to take a kind of a 10-minute break because I was just being very anxious when I was trying to film the top. I haven't really done an explanation video in so long, so I've just like kind of fell apart. So the way the bottom works is, the storage is pretty much like most other 4 high 5x5 bottoms with no observers. I guess I don't really need to build it, it's pretty easy to show. Let me actually make this glass so you can see it easier. I'm pretty sure the only ones that needs to be glass or that need to be solid, I believe, is this one. Okay, let me slow it down so you can see it better. Okay, so that's how the closing works. It just extends. You've probably seen a layout like this, except this piston's in the side, because there's really no way to power this middle piston without doing weird shit or being location or whatever. So that's why in pretty much most 4 high 505 bottoms, at least one of the storage pistons is in the side, just like this. And so it's pretty simple how this works. Dust powers this piston, repeater powers this piston, dust over here powers this piston, and then the second piston down here gets powered by a repeater. And for this piston, that right here, this actually gets powered by, this is a T flip-flop circuit. This will pulse once, which will extend it, and then this will power this dust, which goes down, oh, you have to type spectator now, that's so annoying. God damn it! I hate whatever version added that. Okay. So basically the way this works, the dust gets powered, and then the dust powers, there's a block, and it gets powered, a repeater right here. That's what powers this part of storage. And it's important for this to be a T flip-flop because if you didn't have the T flip-flop there, this would happen. Well, actually, it's an issue if... It's actually an issue if this block down here is solid. Let me show you. Oh, what the hell? I don't remember it being this bad. I thought just this storage would break, but I didn't realize it actually was that bad. Oh, whatever. So, oh yeah, and this extends. That's the original issue. So, yeah, that's why that T flip-flop needs to be there. And, okay, so that storage works like that. It does the same on the closing and the opening. It's not any different, or not really any different. And since this gets 2 pulses, it will pulse twice, and it will close. God, this part is so weird. I'm not doing so well. And the way this piston extends the storage is that you can either, well, normally the burnout, this dust down here would update a burnout. And since there's obsidian over here, it's not an issue. I can replace it with a barrier so you can see it a little better. In this case, this dust bud powers the piston. And on the opening, that burnout's irrelevant right now. Basically, the burnout just spams it so it retracts. Excuse me? What did I do to this thing? Why is it broken? Did I break it? I mean, obviously broke it, but how? Why is it not working anymore? I'm actually really confused right now. I actually have no idea what I did to break it. Unless something else needs to be solid, Okay. Apparently there's an issue with one of the blocks being transparent, and I don't actually know which block it is. So we're just gonna leave it, solid for now. And I already explained the storage, so it's probably fine. Okay, so now I'll explain how the bottom pistons get powered. Actually, I just realized I have World Edit. I can literally just copy and paste it. So the way this works, there's a tripwire, there's 2 thingies here, 2 mine carts, and there's a composter, and unfortunately this cannot be a cauldron because the cauldron the height of the bottom is a little bit too tall on the cauldron, so it wouldn't actually hit the tripwires. This was invented by Vipely Wolf RS or Ashley. I'll link her, like I said, I'll link her channel in the description, and this makes it really easy to actually extend the bottom pistons. There's one tripwire here, which powers these two pistons, because this tripwire powers this one, and the block right here powers this one, and then there's a second tripwire here, which just minecart just powers this one, and this has to be glass because otherwise it will break the storage piston right there. That is how the bottom pistons are extended. I'll just destroy this because I don't need it anymore. Okay, so once the storage powers, this repeaters will supply enough delay to power the bottom row of pistons. And now the way this part works, now this is where it's actually very locational. This is very unfortunate because it works very well when it does work, but it does not work at all when it doesn't. The way this works, this is basically a falling edge monostable circuit. Let me copy this. And now the issue is that this relies on basically a burnout or a controlled burnout to power a comparator, and burnouts powering comparators is very locational. Actually, we're very lucky here. Normally, it's very rare for this to actually work. But as you can see in this case, the monostable dual edge or falling edge works. Basically, this, when it's powered, it doesn't power the burnout because the repeater unpowers the burnout immediately. This piston goes down. And if I unpower this, the dust turns off, which allows the torch to turn on, which gives it some time, and then this retracts, which unpowers the torch again. And that is exactly how this falling edge works. And the reason this is important is because when you power the door, these three pistons right here are powered by this dust. This dust powers a repeater, which powers the dust, and powers a repeater right here, which extends these three pistons. Like when the storage pushes in, when the storage pushes in, this middle dust right here will power all three pistons. Obviously, these two pistons right down here are being bud powered. And what this does is that there's a 4-tick here, and it's a little bit weird to explain, but basically what happens is that this will power, and then these will power down here, the bottom pistons, and then this will unpower, and this dust right here will power this first two pistons in the middle, and this comparator will power the dust right here. And now the reason this needs to be a comparator is for two reasons, or one reason is pretty much universal in most 4Y to 5F5 bottoms, is that if you have this be a repeater, the issue is that this repeater will power this repeater, and this will break, or this could possibly break the storage down here depending on the location. And so basically the comparator filters out 1-tick pulses generated by repeaters for the most part. For most like 1-ticks powered by repeaters, it will be filtered by the comparator, but there's a lot of different types of 1-tick pulses. Sometimes it won't get filtered. Like if it's a redstone block being powered by a sticky piston with a 2-tick repeater before the piston, it will not filter the 1-tick pulse. So different dual edges will not work. I think. I can't remember exactly, so that's why this needs to be a comparator. If I slow down the door, I can show a little better. As you can see, storage, I wait for this to pulse. God, I forgot how slow this thing is. That powers, this powers, and watch this. Repeater powers, the bottom row of piston power, and then this unpowers, which basically causes that to extend. And now, the reason why this happens is that the refire actually powers on both the closing and the opening. But it's a little bit interesting to explain because it is the blast pulse does not fire on the closing. Now, the way the refire works is that if you have a 4-high bottom like this, and you have it in basically, when the pistons are in this state and you give this part a 4-tick pulse, it pushes the pistons with the blocks in, and then everything gets powered. This piston gets powered by this dust. This dust powers the block, which powers this piston, and then this burnout actually powers the repeater, which powers the block, which powers this piston right here. Takes a second. Actually, it powered earlier. You might not have seen it. And then basically, the repeaters down here power the bottom row of pistons, and then this 4-tick, it basically does the bottom closing / opening. It basically repeats that cycle. Because of the timings, it will work, and then this monostable powers these 3 pistons, and then this dual edge right here, falling edge, sorry, will do what it does, and it powers the bottom 3 pistons, or the middle 3 pistons, and that is how the close opening works. I know that was a lot to take in, but that part is really hard to explain. I have never really been able to explain this to people because it's so complicated and weird, but most 4-wide bottoms work like this. Not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them do. So I can explain how this actually works right here. And this part is really strange. So basically there's actually an AND gate right here, and you probably, you really should, if you do redstone, you really should know what an AND gate is. And if you don't know what an AND gate is, it is basically, you have 2 inputs and an output, but the output only fires after both inputs have been powered. I'm stumbling a lot right now, I'm so sorry. Okay, so basically, powering this does not power it, this doesn't power it either, but if you power both, it extends, and if you unpower any of them, the piston will retract. And now this is essentially what is happening here. I keep pressing this stupid Windows key. There's a redstone torch right here powering from the bottom pistons at tripwire, and when this turns off, this torch will turn on. Well, and there's also a 4-tick repeater which goes through that refire I was talking about. But here's the thing. There's also a dust right here being powered from this comparator. Now what this does is, the comparator, wait, what? Why is it, what's in here? It's just one item. What else is powering it? Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. This repeater's powering it, which is making it a 15, signal strength. That, it confused me for a second, so, basically, this torch will only turn on when this is off, but also when this comparator down here turns off. And basically, what happens is that when this dual edge fires, this dust right here will temporarily turn off the comparator. And what happens is that at the right timing, this will turn off, but the comparator will also turn off this dust right here, which causes the torch to power and give the 4-tick pulse necessary to power the refire. And I'll show this in action, if I can. Okay, watch this. So this repeater right here will turn off, and then the comparator will turn off, which gives that little pulse right there. And this repeater right here prevents, basically, this part. Oh my god. So, and then what happens is that this repeater coming from the storage will turn the torch off again, and another pulse from here will lock the repeater to lock it enabled. So basically the refire does not it doesn't clock. It doesn't infinitely loop. It's like, for example, if I didn't have this repeater here, As you see, it just infinitely loops because this does not power for long enough. That's why the repeater down here is really important because it locks it. It holds up for just long enough so that the repeater can turn on again and prevent the door from refiring infinitely. And okay, I'm so stressed right now. I'm so sorry. I'm really bad at recording videos. This is really okay. Deep breath. There's so much to explain in this thing. I didn't realize how complicated this... It's not even that complicated. It's just weird to explain. That's how that works. And, now, the way the last pulse works is when you, Okay, so when it gets to this state, you have to power these 3 pistons right here. And the thing is that you only want this to happen on the opening. And the weird way I did this is that, so there's a cart slider right here, which powers the side pistons, but what it also does is this is also a monostable. And what happens is that, when I close the door, this slider is going to be extended. And as you can see, this repeater cannot power the last pulse, because if you power it on the closing, as you can see, it actually messes up the door, as it puts a hole in it. So, that's why it's important for that to not fire in the closing, and this is easier said than done. And the way I did this is that well, as you can see, this is a normal piston right here, and basically the top will spam the slider down, and this repeater will basically act like a monostable. As you see, it powers just at the right time to power the last pulse. And the way this repeater gets powered is the comparator down here gets unpowered, and there's another torch right here which powers the monostable. And the reason why there's a redstone block here is actually kind of stupid. It's basically to prevent, because this repeater powers a bunch of times, and you really need this to only power during the last pulse and no other time else except for maybe the refire. So the redstone block basically causes this piston to get bud powered by something I don't remember, but it basically prevents, like, this was like an accidental discovery. If you don't, I was kind of just experimenting with things until the redstone block ended up working. If you don't have the redstone block there, it actually powers too many times. And it actually causes the whole door to basically explode. Implode, explode, but yeah. Stop. Thank you. So that's why the redstone block is there, is to prevent the door from basically turning into a runaway diesel engine. And the reason why the refire powers again is one, to push the slider down, and also because it's just a random side effect of the dust right here causing the burnout to fire a second time, which basically, and the way the refire on the top works is that this burnout right here actually powers the piston with the armor stand, which powers the refire, or the triple extender, and the triple extender only. You do not want it to power the storage, like I mentioned a long time ago. And it basically prevents it basically just prevents the storage from firing. And I believe that is everything. Oh, I never really explained this part. Basically, the side pistons in the bottom, and the reason why this works is because it only pulses, like, it's like a directional zero tick, or locational. I don't know if it's directional or locational, but it basically acts as like a very quick pulse. If it powers too many times, the pistons down here won't be able to grab it. Oh my god, okay, I think I explained everything in here. I'm so tired. I'm not tired, I'm just exhausted of talking so much about this thing. It's so weird to explain, but I think I've pretty much explained everything. This dust right here powers these pistons. I think I explained it all. Oh, I have to explain this part? Oh my god. Okay. So this part is, this is the hardest part to explain in the whole door. This video is already getting way too long. Oh shit, no. Okay. I'm okay. Don't worry, I'm fine. Dust. Okay. Okay, so what this does, as you saw on the closing, the refire fired a little weirdly. As you see, this piston did not actually retract it, and the reason is because on the closing, this piston right here is extended, and this basically, what it does is this acts as an updater to power, okay, this redstone block actually needs to power this, to bud power this piston, but only in certain situations, because if you have it power on the last pulse, it'll basically cause this double piston extension thing to happen again, which you don't want. So basically these pistons right here are blockers, so that it only fires in certain situations. And what this redstone block does is it keeps the bottom pistons extended on the refire, or on the bottom opening, just long enough for this piston to retract all the way. I don't even want to explain it. I think I've explained enough. No one's even going to watch this video anyway. Why am I even filming this? Okay, I am done with this. I am going to edit this and upload it. So I will see you guys later. I hope you people enjoyed this video. Please comment, rate, subscribe. Bye!